8 years ago, a single road trip invitation changed the entire path of my career. One shot, one chance. I didn't know that was even a chance, and I had no briefing, no outline, and no reference films to go off. This is a little story about giving your very best and how that impacted my life for the past 8 years and how it might still affect your career in 2025. Hi, I'm David. I'd call myself a documentary filmmaker, but with a heavy bias towards cars and automotive. And I'm also somewhat specialized in fast-paced road trip and rally-style productions, all of which have their basis in this very story from 2016. The premise was really simple. Munich to Munich, via 16 of the most glorious roads the planet has to offer in the Alps. I was about to shoot on a first-gen DJI Osmo and a Phantom 3, those drones before they became small, as well as my own GH4. That was really the latest 8 years ago, but doesn't stand any comparison to today's gear. An additional requirement was that all my camera gear and luggage had to fit in the footwell of a 1970 Porsche 911 ST, which, for those unaware, is a tiny, almost race car for the road. Everything on this trip was new for me. I had been in old cars and around old cars, but never to this extent, and never in an environment where they would be properly used. Stefan had organized trips like this previously, and while he was obviously not keen on video taking a lot of time, he integrated me like I was part of the group. A very exclusive group at that, and that made me feel like I belonged. Filming, on the other hand, was a completely different story. I learned very, very quickly that in order to get anything at all, I had to anticipate what would happen next. I had to look at what the people did, how they did it, how they drove in the groups, all those sorts of things. Because if I didn't get the shot, there was no shot. There was just nothing for me. In documentary work, you very often don't get a chance for a repeat or a reshoot. And once you've arrived at the editing room, those shortcomings on production, they become irrelevant. You either have the shot, or you don't have a shot. The client doesn't really care, and the viewer doesn't even know. So ultimately, it's on you to make that decision in the field. Are you willing to compromise for those shortcomings, to go the extra mile? And if not, can you accept the fact that it might not be the end result you want? For me, it's always the same. I give my very best. As a personal experience, this trip branded me for life and has changed my personal projects tremendously and changed my view on cars as a whole. From like a footage point of view, oh man, I came home and I had no clue. Up to this point, all I had worked on was some commercial stuff, like happy clappy kind of stuff, and automotive documentaries, which are very slow, they're narrative and interview based, so the edit itself has to do less. And I tried to use the same kind of style on some footage that just didn't make any sense. There was no narrative, there was no voiceover, there was no interview. It was just cars and roads. And after struggling for days on end, the change only really appeared when I decided, you know what, I'm not going to use what I thought would be appropriate, but I'm going to use a musical track that I like. The track that I chose was Legendary by Welshly Arms. Now that track is now well known, but back then it was still a small indie track that could be licensed for fairly cheap. The edit by no means fell together either way, but at least I could assemble something that I watched and I was kind of stoked about. And then I was scared absolutely shitless when I had to send it out to Stefan, because I had no idea what he would say. I was shaking when his response email came in, and shaking even more when I realized he loved it. He loved what I had done, despite there being no rules and no guidelines. My style had paid off. And even more so, the head of marketing of Porsche Germany, who was part of the trip, also loved it. And that's how that film got pushed to the Porsche Global YouTube channel and started this brand relationship, which has now been going for 8 years. And what does that have to do with you? Which is a good question. I had no incentive to go leaps and bounds beyond what I knew when I was asked to do that road trip film 8 years ago. Almost 9 years ago. But I was there. I was there. And for whatever reason, if you're in the room, you've said yes to the gig, you said yes to a passion project, you said yes to a friend. If you've already come this far to have the camera in hand, you might as well give it your very best and see it through to the end. And very often you'll come off with life experience or personal growth. But sometimes, very rarely, you get your dream client.